I now call upon the Minister for Health and Social Development and Territorial Member, the Honorable Carvin Malone.
Speaker, for affording me the opportunity to lend my support to the budget for 2021. As we are well aware, this is the third budget of this 22-month-old government, and I would say I take my hats off and to the Premier, the Ministry of Finance, and his hard-working team for being able to accomplish this. All praise and glory, of course, go first to God, and then, as we said, it is by no means a small feat to accomplish this in 22 months. We would learn that for the past 15 years, if not more, that most, if not all, of the budgets were delivered, whether it was February of the following year or March, and some down in April. I think it has to be, by Constitution, it has to be delivered by April. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that we would, in fact, give recognition and give recommendation where, commendation where it is actually necessary, and in this case, for the fine works that has been done. Mr. Speaker, I think it was critical for us to each get an opportunity to lend support, because there are 2 or 3 different approaches that must be taken when debating this particular budget. You have to give recognition to the context and the time in which the budget itself is given, is made. Mr. Speaker, I never leave home without my hand sanitizer. Yeah, we have to give recognition to the time and space in which the budgets are made. Number one, this budget, again, will be characterized primarily of what you'll hear on this side and what you will not hear from the side opposite. And although there were inklings of commendations, they were all reserved. So, as the Honorable Leader of the Opposition say, he is tasked with presenting his side of the story. So too, Honorable Member for the 2nd District, the second of the 3 parties making up the opposition. And there are different views that would always be shown. So, and then there are the facts, because once we're done, we will learn of the different drafts that we've had, the different times that we've spent in reviewing all of the documents that came before us, and the estimates and what will be the estimates but we'll see. Okay, great. So once we, Mr. Speaker, look in terms of the conservative budget that we have. When we came into office, there are specific concerns and constraints of which we were faced. Members speak of what monies were left in loans to be spent for capital projects. Members speak of what monies were left in certain heads to be spent. But what they did not speak of was the fact that after the storms of 2017, for instance, we have a pledge to give guarantees, to give up to 300 million pounds, which we all say is about $400 million, but they came with specific stipulations. Yes, we could have jumped at it and afford ourselves, once the paperwork was put in place, to that $400 million. But let's put it in context, because this is the context in which the budget, especially budget 2 and now budget 3, is being made. So let's put it in context, because when the Premier and his team went to the UK to get this done, we said, well, look, we do need funding, because we have all of the infrastructure of which the opposition speaks of that has to be repaired. We have facilities in Jocelyn Dykes, facilities on Tortola, facilities on Virgin Gorda, facilities in Anegada, and other facilities throughout the Virgin Islands. But the terms and conditions under which that money is to be gained was not acceptable to a government coming in on February 25th. And the members are quite aware of it. They're quite aware of it, because this is why you have 2 and 3 different parties right now as we speak. They were not pleased with the terms and conditions under which the monies were to be secured. So what did that leave us with? It left us with having to seek ways in which we can see never come to an end, because it was said you could never touch the particular projects that were negotiated to be completed by a recovery and development agency, which, might I add, included every capital project that was to be done. It was going to be unattainable, unsustainable, and would inoculate, for the lack of a better word, any sitting government from doing that work of which members are now saying needs to be done. Yes, they need to be done. And it will be done. The 65 million was it? That was negotiated with CDB. Yes. Even in that circumstance, in order for us to get the Elmo Stout High School done for the benefit of our contractors, for the benefit of our local industry, it had to be done in a different manner, and a manner which is now pleasing to all. You would not hear that, but you would hear that we have the school up and running. That is proper. We have other parts and segments of the school that we must be able to now develop, because, and this is why, in the revised plan, development plan, we have looked in terms of where the protocol documents call for certain ratios to be held if you are not going to be subjected to more scrutiny, more direct control, and the inability to look at the projects that would be necessary, critical, and important for a particular territory and a government to bring forward for its people. It is critical to understand this because, and I could hear the actual refrain. When are you going to get off of this? We're dealing with this now. We're dealing with those issues now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I oft wondered, well, why would Nike, KFC, Burger Kings, oh, Burger King is easy, it's in the name, Burger Kings. Why would these people, McDonald's, why would they advertise? Because for some reason, based on the human psyche, if you don't remind people that Nike is with shoes and clothing, McDonald's is with burgers, KFC is with chicken, they somehow seem to forget. And they go look for Popeyes and forget that there's a KFC. If Rick Van Winkle was to awaken from his slumber and hear the presentations today, you would not know that in the beginning were all of these issues of which we had to face. So Adam and Eve was there in the beginning. So what did we find in the beginning of this administration? This is what we found. This has to be explained so that people will know the context of which we speak. We had to determine, there was a paper and we were invited to look in terms of what relationship that the overseas territories want with the UK moving forward. It will be on record that I have opined the fact that this very important issue of Brexit could have consequences for us. And it was going to be critical that we get to understand, if you're going to have a divorce, I've often said, if the UK is going to divorce itself from the other European community, then before the siblings, the kids, decide, well, where is it that I'm going to reside? With mommy or with daddy? I want a roof and shelter over my head, so if mommy can keep the house, I can stay with mommy and visit daddy. If daddy can keep the house, I can stay with daddy and visit mommy. The whole concept of this is that we have to look in terms of our determination based on a number of factors. We are battling also the issue as it relates to open registry. We have had many conferences as it relates to what effects can open registry have on this territory. It is an open secret that we are going to do whatever is required to make sure the industry itself is sustained. We're going to do whatever it is to make sure that we have the accountability, the transparency, and when the court or anyone have made decisions, we would have the books all there. It's there. There's nothing to hide. But one have always asked the question, would our bank accounts be open? How would we feel? We walk into a bank and they say, all bank accounts is open for examination. Mr. Speaker, I would love to see the 8 digits next to your name, 9 digits, left of the dot. You open the account and here you are, $100 million. But is that fair? No. If a court decides, well, we must produce the books of the Honorable Speaker to see where this money is being stashed. And I don't know what surprise you'll get. 8 digits, 9 digits, 5 digits, I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, there's a process for it. And it boils down to that. Mr. Speaker, if that was not enough, we're also dealing with the concept that lends itself opportunities, economic substance, so that we have already put the ball in motion as it relates to exactly what it means. I don't know, because it was just like in 1995. I happened to be around long enough. I'm the youngest serving member as it relates to this. I was returned last in 2019. So all the other members, they brag of 50 years of experience on the other side. I only have 22 months. 50 years versus 22 months. So, Mr. Speaker, I start at a disadvantage. So I want to know, when that comes to play, we would have an issue, and we are developing these as to exactly the whole concept of economic substance. It offers us opportunities, yes. It offers us opportunities. And we're going to be able to capitalize on all of these opportunities that it offers. But the goalpost keeps shifting. I don't care how good a shooter you are. If the goalpost keeps shifting, every time you get close to it, every time you line it up, it goes left, it goes right. If it was going left to right, it's fine. But it goes up sometime, down sometime, in sometime, out sometime. How would you ever make a basket? How would you? We have to be nimble, yes. If there is one industry of which all the houses that I know have been unified in, it is with the financial services industry. I have seen bills come in here, and within a twinkling of an eye, overnight, first, second, third reading, because we have to get the bills done. We have to keep the industry moving so that it will continue to be sustained in a manner in which we have become accustomed to. The goalpost is moving, and we have to be mindful of this, and we are doing all that is required in order to make sure that the British Virgin Islands stay at the forefront, at the front of this industry. Mr. Speaker, there are others who have came. They have copied our legislation, they have purchased the BOSS system, they have done everything. But the fact is, the British Virgin Islands continue to be leaders in this prized and sought after industry, to where first world countries are thinking that their sustainability rests in the Virgin Islands. I don't understand it. It is only since we got into it that this became an issue. I have grown up learning of Swiss bank accounts. Never heard there was a problem. Never heard there was a problem. Swiss bank accounts. As soon as others got into it, all of a sudden they're looking for funding, for the funding source. First world countries. And some of them benefit the most out of offshore and financial services sector. No one is hiding anything. How could you hide in this push-a-button world? You push a button and you get all the information. Well, Google was down today, I understand. So you might have to push 2 buttons or go to another search engine. But the fact is that you push a button, information is there. Push a button and it is there within the ambit of the law. So here we are, high-level framework to get guarantees so you can search for loans so they could be spent by a determined agency for you to pay back, and you can determine how the projects work. That's the first hurdle. Second, Brexit. Where do we go? Third, economic substance. How do we go? And then, COVID-19. COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, this global pandemic is reaping havoc throughout the world as we speak. In some of our neighboring islands, named and prized resorts are being asked to evacuate all your guests. In other islands, we're going to close down bars from 5 o'clock. In other islands, you can't come in at all. In first world countries, we're going on a tier 3 lockdown. In others, we are going to stop testing so you don't. Well, one person did say you wouldn't have so many cases unless you test. So stop testing and you wouldn't have these number of cases. But we know that's unsustainable. We know that cannot work. So the fact is that we have to continue to do whatever is required in order to get us on the correct footing, Mr. Speaker. We have to do whatever is required to do it. Well, one retired politician, in their words, it says sometimes you have to let it go, let it be. But again, if Rip Van Winkle was to wake up and listen next week to some of the presentations that were made, he would not realize that the budget has to be reflective of all of these events before and an ongoing pandemic to which we know no end as yet. The British or UK or partners have made the offer for the vaccines. We have accepted the offer for the vaccines. Persons would have the choice of whether or not they would take the vaccines. We've also made other arrangements because we have two different sources, because one of them require specific storage capacities and properties. So these storage capacities are dry ice and temperature 22 below and 27 below it. A number of delicate properties that we've had to work with. And bad enough, we had to reserve ourselves in taking the funds that were supposedly going to be granted, not in grants, not in loans even, but in guarantees, with stipulations where we had to reserve ourselves and make sure that it is in our best interest. Bad enough, we have to hedge ourselves against the effects of open registry if it is imperial legislation that will come. Bad enough, we have to look in terms of determining exactly what economic substance we'll have. But here we are now. The pandemic. It came on us, well, not on us only, because there would have been some argument if it was just us. But first world, second world, and third world countries are coming to grip with the economic hardship and limitations of this. And in the balance of lives and livelihoods, yes, the team opposite have a job to do, but there must be a responsible job, because they cannot continue to speak as if this don't exist. no one wants to be pat on the back on this, but you have to come to some sense of realization. The only reason why I can probably project my voice is because we have kept the nation safe. It is an important ingredient to livelihoods. You cannot have livelihood sustained if life is taken or if life itself is compromised. So in doing this, we've had to protect our borders, develop our capacities in the medical world. We had to provision, we had to provide stimulus packages. Members talk about, we did it as if it was a 3-month package, and while at the same time they just got done spending over another $300,000. That was not in the first 3 months, that was in the last 2 months. It did it at the same time when businesses were asked to make recommendations, whether it was for fishing loans, whether it was for farming, whether it was for small businesses that were affected by this. We have done it without compromising whatever level of autonomy that we have gained, because here we are, 70 years later, since the restoration of our Constitution in 1950. And I never let persons forget the fact that this fight, as the Premier has often said, did not start with just the march. The march was an important turning point. But when we look at 1946 and 47, when we look at Hope Stevens and we look at H.R. Penn and we look at the team that had to visit the particular committee, the Federation Committee, down in Antigua, to look in terms of what is the next step. Decisions had to be made. Decisions had to be made. And folks were hammering that this whole concept that you're going to run the Virgin Islands from a distance with the leftovers, so to speak, that was not going to be sustainable, and we had to get it moving. And this is why when I came into the House, I've said that the onus will be on us to make sure that the health care system is one in which we advance, one in which we are proud of, one in which we can be looking towards the future and making the best health care system in the territory, because it has a history. 1949, the move to propel our Constitution, the move to make our status so that we can be owners of our destiny, was heightened by the lack of proper health care. And it is something which touches everyone, from outside Jocelyn Dyke this time, from Jocelyn Dyke up to Anegada. So it is keen, it is important, it is critical that we get it right. But what did we do? We had a special sitting in celebration of that. Oh, how defeating it would be if those persons who fought in 46, 47, 48, 49 and got the prize in 1950 were to come back and to see that we, instead of moving it forward from what legislations they had, the alien landholding license, turning it where we came out of granted aid, moving to where we have pioneering status, moving to where we were able to get all those legislations for which we now benefit. When you look, those things are brought back, and we're now looking in terms of whether we can keep a constitution, whether we want to move towards the next step, the next stage, or we want to have the status quo. The status quo is being taken away from us. I have often said, and I would not go back on this, the fact is that it is the duty of leaders to gain the confidence of the voters and people of this territory so that we can move together towards the next step. It cannot be an overnight sensation. Nobody can go to sleep, have a bad dream, and then come and tell you that you have to live it. We all have to, we are in this together. We must understand what it means, but understand we must. So we have to talk, debate, go from the highways, the byways, and make sure that everyone understand what is critical for us in moving forward. It is important, Mr. Speaker, when we get ministerial government in 1967, that was fought for and it was gained. When we came out of grant and aid, some 42 years now, is it? Some 42, 43 years ago, that was important. Those are steps forward. It was important when we had the double treaty, and that was taken away, and we had to move into financial services in '84 also, I believe it was, when the late Honorable Sir Romney and Mr. Hunt, Attorney Hunt and all the others got the legislations put together so that we can transition to this. This was critical. This was important. We now have a bill of legislation which would look to and to incorporate the whole medicinal marijuana is critical for us. It's not an overnight thing. This is done in the UK. Billions of dollars raised from this. It's done in the United States. Billions of dollars. It's done in other jurisdictions. So we're not talking about a bill to get us high. We want to get high. There's a song for it, but that's not the song. That's not the one. We want to get real. We want to look in terms of what we can attain from the legislation that is on the table. I would say that we need to move it forward because all of these other hurdles are in our way. How far up would the hurdle move? The basket is moving, the hurdle is heightening, making it more difficult. We can get this done, Mr. Speaker, but it must be done together. It is critical. It's important. We must have it done in a way that will be sustainable. So when we look at our budget and in the close of the, as a territorial at-large representative, I have the unique look at all the districts, together with my other 3 territorial at-large colleagues. So, if I go to District 2, and I find that there is a project to be done, well, let's make it easy. If I go to District 1, and I find that there is a project in District 1 to be done, I call the representative for District 1. I said, well, look, I have a project. He might say, well, look, that's very good. Go ahead, but let's talk. We'll talk. Can't we do it in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? That is the charge of which we have. I was there when it came in '95. It didn't come in order for us to police the other 9 districts. In fact, some members, even on our own team, they have difficulty with understanding how the at-large system itself was intended to work. Some have surmised that it was intended to get a Virgin Islands Party government out of office because they had too much in their minds of a strong hold on the districts. And I remember when the first returns came in 1995, the then Chief Minister said they brought in the at-large system to get rid of the Virgin Islands Party, but see what we have done. We won the government. Of course, 2003, 2011, 2015, we lost the government. But that's what democracy is about. The voters' right to choose. And Mr. Speaker, the fact is that when you look in terms of the different items and projects to be done, I lend my support to each of the districts, save none. I lend my support to each of them, and if there is a specific project, you may not specifically like who it was awarded to, but the fact is that it has to be value for money. That's an ingredient. It has to be handed to capable hands. That's an ingredient. And it must benefit all. That's an ingredient. And I think that if it's done with the respect of the quote-unquote district rep, that is a plus. Is it a must? That is debatable, but it's a plus. So the whole thing is that I love pluses. So I would always seek to have it as a plus. I will always seek to make sure that district reps are involved at all points. And in fact, the reality is that you cannot win as an at-large without the support of the districts. So if you want to win, is when you can move it from just being a plus to a must. So not only is it a plus, but it's a must if you want to get the support of your district persons. And might I add, Mr. Speaker, that members from the party opposite have never had it so good in their life. They are having a time of their life. Whatever projects they want, they get. The Premier is seeing to this. Whatever projects they want, they get. I have read about this. I've been around it. Have not been in the middle of it, but I don't know what the years before. When the Premier wraps up, he'll have to tell me that this is just a continuation of what he met from his 22 years in this business. The opposition get whatever they want. And what you would not hear is anything that would, quote unquote, have it attain in terms of this government has been the best government as it relates to projects. Politically, you almost cannot say that. But the facts will reveal and the facts will attain that if I get $1, they get $1. That's what happens. And in fact, you've heard members say that thanks to the Premier, we were able to fix from here to there. They didn't list all of them. They didn't do it at all. Thanks to the Premier, we were able to now move the monies that were taken away and revote it. Well, it was not revoted. It was just sniffed away and go into, I got my 2 hours, and go into other projects. It went into other projects which they, at the time, deemed more important than that project in the East. And of course, he said, well, I can see that it is now coming to play. Well, what about thank you very much? I couldn't get it done with my party, but now it's being done. Thank you. That's one. There are many others, Mr. Speaker. We can say, again, thanks to the Premier, we were able to get a lot of other items that we could not get under our government. Look at Jocelyn Dyke. Look at Jocelyn Dyke. You go over there now and you have a luxurious building being built. Road paved from the, where's it, Dog Hole? Straight over, and more to come. The hillside, paved. They are saying, they should be saying thank you. if this is what it takes for us to get our projects done in our districts, we'll stay over here. Because we need a premier who is fair and square across the table. Fair and square across the table. Honorable member for the 3rd, as soon as the member for transport got in, Bram, he was sitting with him, standing with him on Elevator Hill, getting it repaired. That is progress. Look at what we're doing in the 4th district. We're working together with the member for the 4th to transform, and in the next few days, we will see things happening. All of these districts. My honorable colleague from the 6th, she cried many a morning. As soon as this government got in, bam, done. Where's the thank you? So it will be characterized, as I said, with the things you would not hear. But these were done in the era of pandemic, in the era of high-level framework, in the era of open books, in the era of Brexit. All of this done with all of these uncertainties. So no wonder that if one was to come here with a specific agenda as to exactly to clean up what you met. But that was pre-2017. That was pre-2017. So it is difficult to transition because you were sent here with a specific agenda, but here you come with a government who cares, a government who shares, a government who will do the project no matter where you are representing. It is critical for us to continue to do this. So, Mr. Speaker, as we move along, the budget itself is reflective of specific areas that we have to be mindful of. We have a civil service that is made up primarily of our people, and it is critical that we make sure that we keep these persons engaged. And I happen to be in a ministry that because of the pandemic, we had to call on a number of persons in other departments, a number of persons working in statutory bodies, a number of persons to come over, whether to assist with social distancing, whether to assist with the re-entry protocols, whether to assist in terms of the provisioning program, whether to assist with all of these specific areas that we had. And we'd like to give a big thank you to all of these agencies for the work that they have done to help us through this pandemic, this global pandemic that has reaped havoc throughout. Mr. Speaker, the important part for us to make sure that we do, and in the absence of distraction, I'll be able to complete this. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to keep looking towards what we will continue to do. In our provisioning, we've had, in terms of our response to the coronavirus issue, we've had to expend over $43 million was budgeted. We have to, this is important. This was $43 million that may have been able, would have been able to go to keep the same level of recurrent expenses, if not more, the same $42 million that would have gone towards increased capital projects, the same $42 million of which members are saying, well, this isn't done and that isn't done, but what would we have done? We've had to give statutory bodies $20 million. We've had to have food provisioning programs over $2 million. We've had the house-to-house collection, $740 million. We've had the quarantine expenses, $2.5 million. We've had security expenses, $2.5 million. We've had support to NHI, $7.5 million. We've had the other social needs, $1 million. We've had in terms of the housing repair project, we have 9 million. Five was used to take care of some specific critical items and will be reintroduced in this budget and for the 2021, $9 million there. We've had, what would we do? Not support the areas that we speak about? If Rip Van Winkle was to awake today, he wouldn't know this because the party opposite is not in their interest to say this, but we have done what we must do in order to keep us safe. I will let you know, and it will be coming out later, so I can report. We now have a total of 6 active cases when it comes to COVID-19. Another 3 discovered between Sunday and today, Monday. Of this 6, 4 of them were tests done on day 0, on entry. So although you had a negative test, when you test and came in, because a negative test before you come in would assure that you don't get on the plane and bring it here in a positive light. The test on arrival works. 4 of the 6 active cases were tests done on arrival. They are quarantined, each of them, caught in the quarantine corridors. It works. The other 2 at the exit of day 4. So here you have 6, but each of them in the quarantine space. One of them, I think the person has been identified, had breached, and we are going to make sure that persons understand if you see something, you have to say something, because we cannot afford for any of these persons who would be deemed positive at the end of 4 and they're out there, they're partying on boats in the harbor, partying here, partying there. It works if everyone will do their part. The transportation system is working. It has to be improved in terms of making sure that when you collect persons from the airport, they are seen and handed over properly to the institutions or to the home of which they're to be quarantined. You cannot drop them at the mouth of a driveway for them to take their own bags and walk for tenths of feet. It is not the way it has to work. As I mentioned before, $2.5 million spent on security. So that is unsustainable, in terms of making sure that this is done. We cannot put a security guard to every door anymore. We have this done. We have the particular apps. Yes, there are some areas to be improved, and they will be improved. But in the interim, if you are to be quarantined for 4 days or 7 days, then you must. It must happen. Some of our nationals are finding it difficult to get test results from overseas, where they are short of 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. So we've had to, with the benefit of the CMO and the HSA, if those persons had that type of difficulty, then they're able to do 7 to 10 days quarantine, because we can't keep our nationals out. Our nationals must be able to come home based on Constitution, based on rights. So whether it's 7 days or 10 days, then they're able to attain that. But it also puts the traveling public in jeopardy, because at the end of the day, if you are positive and you were found to be positive when you're in there, then the question is, when were you positive? Coming down, when you arrived, or when you left? So we have to follow the protocols, and all of a sudden we have overnight sensations. We have overnight doctors. People are telling you what you should and should not do. But I have to follow the science. We have to follow what is right in getting this done. Mr. Speaker, So here we have it. We have a team, and we must say thanks to the HEOC for the works that they have done. We have spoken of $43 million in terms of our response in most regards. And there will be additional amounts that would have to be spent, because at the end of the day, 2021 is still here. We don't know how far this will take us. We have improved our labs, best in the Caribbean. We have improved our facility to quarantine. We have improved our testing capabilities. We have built in a 30-day period, we've built an arrival facility at the Terence B. Letcham Airport in order to do this. So our response has been quick. Our response has been proactive. Our response has been correct in terms of doing what is critical. The human factor is what will fail us if we don't do that which is proper. So, Mr. Speaker, the areas of budget for the Ministry of Health and Social Development, it is there. I cannot join the parade of people talking about we don't have enough money. We cannot speak as if we don't know what is happening. But the fact is that whether it's in gender affairs or Safe Haven Transitional Center, the Public Health Program, the Environmental Health Division, Department of Waste Management, the Social Development Department, Her Majesty's Prison, all of the departments under these heads. Mr. Speaker, the fact is that there would always be more requests than there are money at the time. But we know the time in which we're in. And we have a premier, we have a Ministry of Finance who is adaptive to the needs. Once it is well presented, once it is articulated, once it is proven as a need for the territory, this happens. And Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I will be able to say thank you very much. And 35 minutes is not bad, Mr. Speaker. 35 minutes. And members are here showing me their watch. 35 minutes. So thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the time afforded me in making this presentation in full support of this 2021 budget. Thank you.
I thank the Minister for his contribution.